Good morning. Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee and Chat with Hallee Bridgeman. I'm so happy you could join me. I have my cup of coffee, so if you have a cup of coffee or tea and you have a few minutes while we chat. So happy fourth week of social distancing. I can't believe that the end of this week we'll have been doing it for a month. We are back at school this week. We had spring break last week. I'm sorry, I'm really distracted this morning because I found out this morning that one of my best friend's dads died from COVID-19 last night, and I'm really sad for her, and I'm having a hard time keeping a thought. And so forgive me if I seem really distracted and kind of chaotic this morning. It's how my brain feels. So back to stay home. Keep this spread down, please. So, kids are back to school this week. Last week was spring break. So, I had all these plans for spring break. I was going to do all of this big cleaning and gutting and rearranging and purging and getting the boys' rooms, cleaned out and everything. And then Monday afternoon, I got a message from my agent and spent the next 4.5 days completely in my office, shut off from life, and putting together 2 4-book proposals. So that would mean writing the first 3 chapters of the first book of both of them, and writing full-length synopsis, which is basically the whole story for all 8 books. And then blurbs, which Greg did a lot of that work for me because he's brilliant with blurbs, and taglines, and basically just putting together all of these, this massive proposal. The proposals were huge, and they had, here's my research for this series, and here's why I'm, qualified to write this book, and all of these things. And so it was just, it was a lot of work. But it means that the boys for spring break just left me alone. And so we didn't get to their rooms. But we also found out that the social distancing, that their school isn't even going, if it comes back this year, which a lot of people think it won't, we're through May 1st now for having school at home. So I intend to pick a couple of days a week and just get that spring break work done at the end of our school work day, if that's possible, or maybe on the weekend or something. So, happy fourth week. It's also Easter week, Passover week. Our family doesn't do Easter. We do Passover, and then we will celebrate Christ's Resurrection Sunday, but there's no traditional Easter thing in our world. This is really cool. There's this thing, 4 friends added me to this group before I joined it, and it's called the Red Door or something. And so it's hanging red cloth on the door frame of your door, or red wreaths or something, to mark how the Israelites, as they were fleeing Egypt, they marked the doorpost with the lamb's blood as to symbolize that they were of God, and anyone who didn't have the blood on their door frames, that's when the angel of death came through and killed the firstborn. So I don't know who started it or anything. I just think it's kind of cool. And so I hung, red on my door because we celebrate Passover, and that would be fun. And I've always wondered, in the years that Greg and I have shifted away from the traditional Christian celebrations and intentionally shifted to a more biblical feast focus, like Passover instead of Easter, I've often wondered what would have happened if, the early church was seriously anti-Semitic, and there's quotes from early church leaders that were basically, if it is even possibly Jewish, we don't do it. And it was a desire to completely shed everything within the church, shed Judaism out of the church. And so that's basically how Sabbath shifted, and how all of these feasts quit being observed by the church, was in an effort to strip it of any semblance of Judaism. So I've always wondered what would have happened if that hadn't happened. Christmas and Easter have become overly commercialized and of the world, right? So I did an article on Hallee the Homemaker in 2010. So it's been 10 years. And at that time, 60% of adults surveyed did not know the reason for celebrating Easter as Christ's resurrection. Like, they didn't know. And that's a huge number of adults. Huge. And to me, being raised in a Christian home, it doesn't make any sense, because that's what Easter was. You know, you go to church, but and there's a lot of people that only go to church on Easter and Christmas. And so it's strange to me that that's like not, and anyone who reads Family Circle would know why people went to church on Easter. But anyway, so 60% of adults surveyed didn't know. So I have always wondered what would have happened to the feasts if they had been what the Christian church observed. How would the world have taken them and completely bastardized them away from a holy celebration? And it's fascinating. Like, what would decorations look like? What would meals look like? What would gift giving look like? It's interesting to me. And so to see like a modern decoration, a representation of a biblical event being done out by hundreds of thousands of people around I'm assuming around the globe, by hanging the red on the doorframe. You know, if that had been going on for 1,000 years, what would it be now? Would it be like a dancing red thing in the front yard? You know, like the blow up things that people put in their yards at Christmas time. I don't know. It's always been a curiosity of me. What would celebrations look like if the world had been able to have a chance to get a hold of them? I love the fact that it isn't, because it gives us like almost a pure celebration, you know. So anyway, so Passover begins Wednesday evening at sundown. Our family will have a Seder Friday. I'm sad because this year I didn't get to send invitations to people to come do the Seder with us, but I'd reach for something, but I'd probably fall. I have like a stack of pamphlets about Christ and the Passover and having a Passover Seder. So I might scan one or find information online and post it on my social media for those of you who are interested in doing it. So that's what we'll do. We'll do Passover Friday, which is Good Friday, and then Saturday night I'll do our resurrection cookies, and I'll post the link for that. And it's basically like we make meringue cookies, but as we make them, there's very specific symbolism in them. So like when you break the nut, you beat the nuts, and so we read Bible verses about Christ being beaten. And when you put salt in and taste the salt, and it's like the salt of sweat and tears, and vinegar, you put some vinegar in, and you taste the vinegar, and you read a Bible verse about how they offered him vinegar to drink. So you go through this whole process, and then you make these mounds of these meringue cookies on a sheet, and then you put it in the oven, and you turn the oven off, and then you seal the oven. And the next morning, Easter morning, or Resurrection Sunday is what we call it, you unseal the oven, and basically these mounds of meringue are hollow inside. And so they're empty, just like the tomb was empty. And so that's our traditional celebration for our family, to immerse ourselves in what it is that we're talking about on the morning that we observe Christ's resurrection from the grave. And our chapel on Fort Knox is having a drive-up sunrise service on Sunday morning. Apparently they're going to broadcast the sermon on the radio. So we'll drive up to the chapel parking lot, and actually like a huge parking lot near a chapel, and we'll have this community come together without touching, without breathing the same air, and we'll be able to have a sunrise service together. And so those are our plans for this, what the church terms as Holy Week. And we'll also have the boys, we'll sit and watch the Gospel of John with them, which I think is one of the best productions ever put together about the life of Christ. The guy who played Desmond in Lost is Christ, and he's a trained, like his background is Shakespearean actor, and so every single word is important to memorize. Like there's this respect for what the words are that you're speaking. So there's no artistic license given to dialogue, and basically the Gospel of John is verbatim the book of John in a specific translation. I want to say NASB, but I could be wrong. Anyway, there's no word spoken that isn't biblical. And so you could sit down and read it with them as they're going through the story. And it's just a great production. Like it puts in the context, like a lot of things you read but don't know how to see it because it's not your culture, and you can see it there, and it's great. And so we'll watch the Gospel of John, and then we'll probably watch the Passion of Christ. But we did it last year, and I don't know, the boys, that hurt them. Like it hurt me, but I saw it when I was an adult the first time. It hurt their hearts to see, so I don't know if they'll want to do it again this year. We might wait another year or two. So it's good to be able to imagine it in your mind, especially if it's not your culture. And because then the things that are said are understandable to you. Like you can get an idea of what that means. And so it's great. I love both of those productions. So anyway, I hope y'all have a great week. We're back at school. The boys are in their rooms right now doing school. I'm about to go check on them. And Greg's in a meeting. And so it's just back to life, back to what this new normal is. I hope y'all have a great week. Enjoy times with your family. Don't be sad about the way that this week, which everyone already had plans and all of this excitement, just, kind of sink into your families and love on them, and know that God already knows what next week looks like, and next month, and next year. And I will talk to y'all next week. God bless you.